Hello and welcome to Raise the Bar, the Sky High and Fly Jump Camps podcast, where we talk with high jumpers, long jumpers, triple jumpers, anybody who jumps, anybody who trains a jumper, anybody who coaches a jumper about training to increase length and height of jumps, quickness in jumping, technique, anything and everything we can. So right now I would like to do my intro promo for an upcoming guest by the name of Tyler Arroyo, who is really an unsung, unheralded, unknown from right here in California. He went to Chico State the last 2 years and had a PR before last season of 7.2.5, which is 2 meters 20, and just had a monster year, ended up jumping 228, which was 7.5 3/4, and that qualified him for the U.S. Olympic trials, where he went and competed and made the final. So we will be talking to Tyler at length about all the great changes in his life and training and how he got to where he got to. So look forward to that. It's coming up here. Hello, and welcome to Raise the Bar, the podcast presented by Sky High and Fly Jump Camps. My name is Troy Haynes. I am the owner, operator, and chief executive creative force behind Sky High and Fly Jump Camps. And this is my attempt to give back to the high jump, long jump, triple jump, pole vault community, track and field in general. It is my passion and desire to talk with other high jumpers, trainers, coaches, anybody who has had success jumping, coaching, training athletes at the highest level, high jump, long jump, triple jump, pole vault. We'll throw in all kinds of other stuff if it ever comes up. I'm happy to talk about training and stretching and anything and everything that will improve athletic performance, not just for track and field athletes, but basketball players, volleyball players, football players, soccer, tennis, anything that makes someone faster, more explosive, and less likely to get injured. All of those things are desirable, and we'll talk about all those things as they come up. My next guest is a young man from Chico State. He is a high jumper who just made it to the Olympic trials this last year in 2021. He attended Westview High School, and he went to the University of Arizona. He went then to a junior college for a year, and he's been at Chico State for 2 years. And he just has cleared 7.5 3/4 and made it to the Olympic trials this year. And we're going to talk with Tyler at some length about his career, where he's been, where he's going, what he's doing with that thing now that he has made it to the Olympic trials. We'd like to find out firsthand how the Olympic trials were. That is one of my goals back when I was training. I was a UCLA high jumper in 1984. My second year at UCLA, I jumped 7.2. The Olympic qualifying height that year, I think, was 7.4.5 or 7.4 3/4, something like that. And I didn't make it that year, but it wasn't really on my calendar that year because that was the first year I jumped over 7 feet. I didn't really have the goal of going to the Olympic trials. In 88, however, I did, and the qualifying height had gone up, and I was still training like crazy, and I never quite made it to that one. I continued to train and tried it in 92 and didn't make it then either. So you're talking with someone who desperately wanted to go to the U.S. Olympic trials and was never even able to make it. And today we are going to talk with someone who decided to shoot for that particular goal and got there. And so we want to find out how that was. I'm sure it was exciting and fun, but we'll find out all the details when we get to talk to Tyler here in just a minute. So we'll be right back with Tyler Arroyo from Chico State. Welcome to Raise the Bar, the podcast from Sky High and Fly Jump Camps. And my guest today is Tyler Arroyo. Tyler is someone we met on Instagram, right? For the most part. I'm not even sure who followed who or what, but I did remember seeing some of your jumps and reading some of your stuff and looking for videos. I'm always looking for jump videos. And he was gracious enough to get back to me. I requested, hey, I'm looking for current athletes who took part in the Olympic trials. This is what I sent him. Would like to be part of my Raise the Bar podcast. And he just jumped right in there. So here we are. And Tyler, I had a chance to look over what you sent me, but it always sounds better coming from you. So where did you grow up? What was your athletic background? What kind of sports did you do? And how did you get started on this road to the Olympic trials in the high jump?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me on here. It's always good to see people that have an appreciation for coaching high jump. So I see in your Instagram, you always show all the different drills and stuff you do. So it's cool to see. But yeah, so I got started. I started actually my junior year in high school, did high jump, got 6'1" my junior year. So pretty solid for first year. And then I had a massive leap in my sophomore year. And honestly, it was mostly due to just like taking it more serious. And I had a private coach over the summer and then before my senior year. So I believe you do private coaching and things like that. So I do think it is a big help to get that coaching in there. And I had that leap, got 6'9", then went to University of Arizona for 2 years. Ended up getting 6'11" there. And then I wasn't able to keep my grades up there. So I came back and did junior college back in my hometown, San Diego. Ended up getting a PRing at 7'1" there. But I had I think just two jumps at 7 feet during that year. And then ended up getting my associate's degree there, moving on to Chico for the last 2 years of my college career. And I ended up getting 7'2.5" and got third place at both years in nationals. And then, just finished up just recently my first unattached year. And just had a crazy breakout season that I never expected. Ended up getting 228 meters or 7.5 3/4.
Wow, 7.5 3/4. So, questions along the way. I gave everybody a send up at the beginning before you called, and I was talking about the fact that I tried to make the trials. I was a similar path. I started jumping a little bit younger than you did, but in high school I was 210. Went to the state meet and all that, and then went off to UCLA. And, my first year that I jumped 7.2 was in '84, which was the LA Olympics year. And the trial height, I think, was 7'4.5", I want to say, or something like that. And it wasn't even on my radar. I mean, I did not have any idea that I knew the Olympics were coming, but I didn't picture myself as a part of it. So I was still trying to clear 7 foot, for the first time in college. And that year ended up jumping 7.2. And towards the end of the year, after Pac-12s and everything, I had some friends and other athletes who were like, hey, the Olympic tri height's only 7.4. You've already jumped 7.2. And I was like, oh, okay, great. Let's give that a shot. So I went to a couple meets, didn't work out, and then 4 years later, I was more about it. I really wanted to train and try to get there. And unfortunately, here in the U.S., the trial height just kept going up. So it went from 4.5 to like 5 or 5.25, something like that. And, so I was never even able to get there. So right now, just, tip of the cap and, so much respect for anybody that has been there and, got to jump there. So you jumped 5 3/4. What was it like going to the trials when you actually got to jump?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, it was a crazy experience because it really was kind of, that same situation where I didn't really picture myself there. And then just had a breakout season. I was like, wow, I actually have a shot here. And I think I ended up going into it with my PR being like 5th best.
Wow.
And so I was really excited. Flew up to Oregon with my family. And then we went to prelims. It was really hot at the trials. It was like unusually hot. There's a heat wave at Oregon, but ended up making it through. First attempt at 216 and then second attempt at 219. And that was good enough to make it through.
Nice.
Yeah. So then, I mean, I'm not usually too big of a fan of prelims just because, you don't have a chance of getting your PR. So it's not as fun. It's kind of just like more of a relief to make it. Right. But it was cool to make it to finals, and just really crazy experience to see the stadium and all the other just elite athletes there. But then finals. What was that?
There was it packed with the COVID thing? Was it still?
Honestly, it was somewhat packed still. I think they sold like vaccinated tickets, but it was cool because everyone was just reacting to every jump, which is not it's not too often that people watch the high jump, right. Especially coming from D2, where there wasn't always that much fans. But yeah, it was an awesome experience. And then finals, it didn't really go as I hoped, but it was still just a cool thing to be part of. I ended up making my second attempt at opening height, which I believe was 216, and then a bar went up to 221. And I just couldn't get my runway down. I basically slipped on my first two attempts. And then on my third attempt, I just tried to take it easy and just ending up clicking it off with my heels. But it was just a cool experience to be part of, and excited to just makes me excited to start grinding harder and see what happens.
That's awesome. I was just going to say, I the first thing that popped in my mind when Tyler was talking about his foot slipping is like, it's not death for a high jumper, but man, it really messes with your brain. If you come up and for whatever reason, when your foot slides out on you, it just like puts you in a funk. So I'm glad to hear you came back and overcame that and had your best attempt on your third attempt. And there was another young man there. I've had the opportunity now to talk with Tyler now, but a couple weeks ago, and this hasn't come out yet, my second Raise the Bar podcast is with Doug Nordquist. Tyler may know the name. He's a 1984 Olympian. He's a cousin, second or third cousin of Dwight Stones, who's a all-time jumping great in the U.S. And Doug was gracious enough to share his story and some of his training and all that. But he went I think he PR'd 2 or 3 times in the trials. Now, his story is a little more interesting than yours. He squeaked in on his own account at the last minute he was like the number 12 guy. So I don't know if they were trying to take 12 to the final the next day. Tyler was mentioning that, he wasn't crazy about the prelim. And now, see, I'm kind of jumping around because my brain has so many questions. When you jumped in the prelim, did you jump immediately the next day, or did you get a day in between?
We had a day in between.
You had a day to recover. Okay, that's crucial for those of you out there. Now, for me, I was a 6'3", 195-pounder, and I did not recover well with just one day. If I came back the next day, like now, I would be smarter. I'd probably ice bath and do some things that I didn't know about then. My first time with a back-to-back was a high school state meet, and I did not have a good experience there. I was great the first night, and I was crappy the second. And in college, my senior year at NC2A, same thing. I was okay in the opening, first night. Next day, not so great. So I was hoping that you weren't going to say you had to come back the next day. So that was a good thing. For me, it would have been crucial. I don't know what your build is like. I know, some guys can come back and jump the very next day and jump great, but I wasn't that person. So that was my first question. And then what was the second one? We're telling the story about Doug Nordquist. So he snuck in. I guess he missed. You were talking about 221, which is 7.3. Is 221 7.3? Because my best is 222, which is 7.3 and a half or a quarter, whatever. It's 221 7.3.
That sounds right. I still don't have the meters down.
I only know a few. I usually know my PR and that's it. So you jumped at 221. So let's say 7.3. Now Doug had that similar experience on his first round where he didn't make the automatic qualifier, but they had to get 12 guys and he was sitting on the bubble. So he literally had to wait for a couple hours and watch everybody miss. And finally everybody missed and he was in as number 12, even though he didn't make the automatic. And then the second day he said was so in his head the first day that he was kind of tentative and he wasn't sure and blah, blah, blah. And he didn't jump well. And he said, I'm here, I'm in the final and I'm just going to let it all hang out. And then he PR'd 3 times and ended up making the Olympic team with Dwight himself and Milton Good And another guy that I have another podcast with still in production is Leo Williams, who finished up as the alternate that year. So this has been a really cool run. I've got all these guys waiting. You, Jumpman Westner, I don't know if you followed him. You saw him there at the trials, right?
Jordan. Yeah, he was there at the trials. Yeah, I follow him too. He's
loved cool watching his dunking from the free throw line and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, he's insane. Yeah.
So how about you, man? Does there any basketball background there? Can you tomahawk it from the free throw line or what?
No, he's inspired me a little bit to start trying out some dunks, but I'm definitely not as good as him. But no, I just play basketball for fun. I can't dunk as well. I'm 6 feet, so I'm a little bit on the shorter end for high jump, so that doesn't help. But yeah, I definitely love to go play basketball occasionally.
Yeah, well, my opinion of that, I may have shared it on this podcast before, but playing basketball and, training for basketball are very similar to what we do in the high jump. I mean, it's, in a way, it's got a few endurance elements into it. Is that as you're playing it, you're jogging up and down the court, blah, blah, blah. But when it comes to, straight up speed and a short sprint and then a jump and all those things are, very similar. I wanted to branch out with you a little bit, Tyler, and talk about your training. You mentioned that you're just over 6 feet. Another thing that I say to my kids all the time, I goes, real high jumping starts happening once you can jump over your own height. So, some of those I said, hey, when we start jumping over our own heads, you're a real high jumper. From 6 feet up to 7'5", now that's 1.5 feet, almost 1.6 feet over your head. So that puts you up there in some rare class. The two top guys that I know of was a guy named Franklin Jacobs, who was jumping back in the 70s, like 1976. He was 5'7.5", and jumped 7'7.5". So he jumped 2 feet over his own head. And then another name Tyler might know. You're a younger man than I am, so I know all these old people. Stephen Holm jumped 7'11", right? And he's 5'11". So there's two guys out there that have jumped 2 feet over their own heads. But Tyler's got to be up there in those standings with 1.6 feet over your head. So
there's that one guy, I can't remember his name, Ilya, I think. He's the 5'10". He's the world lead right now. That guy is insane too. But yeah, I mean, I can't complain. 6 feet's not short, So it's never been too much of an issue for me, at least.
Jumping 1.5 feet over your head, that's amazing. So here's where my interest is just hugely peaked. Number one, you're talking about your background in high school, and some of you are out there going, wow, 6'9", maybe in high school you jumped higher than Tyler, and you go, how did you go from 6'9" in high school to 7'5"3/4? Like you said, had a breakout year. Who are you training with? And what were those big breakthroughs? Like, how did it happen that you went from 7'2.5" to 7'5"3/4 or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I still don't completely understand, to be honest. 7'2.5", I was really happy with coming out of college. And it's kind of like 7'2.5" is right in that area where you're just below that bubble of like the elite jumpers. And once you get to like that 7'4", that's when it's really the elite jumpers are there. So I never really thought I even had a chance to get up there. I kind of considered, okay, I'm happy with maybe just making the trials. And then, so basically I was just training right out of college just because I know I had 1 year for the Olympic trials. So I just made my own workouts based on, an accumulation of all the stuff that I had learned throughout college. Mm-hmm. Especially being through 3 different schools, I had a bunch of different experiences to play off. But so I just did my own stuff, basically worked out alone, honestly. I would just finish a full day of work, go eat dinner, and then go work out at my old high school or like a 24-hour fitness or any gym close to me. Mm-hmm. And then COVID hit and basically everything was reset. I honestly basically was going to hang them up and stop high jumping altogether. I mean, I was just going to focus more on coaching. And then I took like a 2.5-3 month break from it right after COVID ended the season. And then I just got the itch for it again. So I decided, all right, I'm going to go for it again. So I just basically made another workout plan for myself and just followed that, stayed consistent with it. Occasionally would work out with like one of my old teammates, but but for the most part, it just worked out alone.
Oh.
Mainly doing, a lot of high jumping when I could find a pit, and then plyos and short sprints and some weight stuff. That's the main bulk of it.
Wow. Yeah, it was tough right there for a while with COVID, right? Even finding a pit open, let alone finding a pit where the pits were out and you had the standards out and all that stuff, right? So I went through that for a year training my athletes. There was one place that I have not yet mentioned by name as I was showing my videos because I didn't want to get in trouble. I didn't want to get them in trouble, but there was just almost nowhere to train. So I feel that. It's interesting that you did that without it. So you didn't have a technical coach watching you jump. Did you have anybody like videoing your workouts? Did you?
No. So, I mean, I have a bunch of older coaches that I've worked with. And so I would, after some meets or stuff like that, I'd send them videos and just see their thoughts on it. But basically I would just set up my phone against my shoe, just record myself high jumping, look at the jump after every jump and see what I need to change based off that. So I've kind of gotten used to and honestly kind of enjoy just being able to coach myself on things, but definitely get the perspective from other people and see what their thoughts are.
That's amazing. So self-trained, your first year of self-training, you ended up going from 7.2.5, which is what? 7.2.5 is 220?
Yeah, 220 to 228. And I mean, it was 2 years, basically 2 years since COVID year was,
You didn't have a chance to compete at
right.
Year. So the 2.5 to 7 5.75 happened this year. Where was that meet that you did 5.75? Was that the qualifying height or was that over the qualifying height?
Yeah. Auto qualifier for trials was 226. And I got all my meets were at the Chula Vista Training Center down in San Diego. So I was training and there wasn't really any meets that were coming up just because COVID was still going on, and then the Olympic Training Center down in San Diego kind of saved me. They just decided to open up six sanctioned meets. So has good competition there. Eric Kennard was there for probably half the meets. Wu was there, who's going to the Olympics. Django Lovett he's in the Olympics too. He competed there a few times. So it's just having that good competition and then a good facility to do it at. I just got super lucky and was able to PR like that, because if I didn't have any meets, which was very possible, who would have known? I probably still would have thought of myself as a 7.2 jumper.
Right. So you had a chance. And some of these other names you're mentioning, not all of those were Americans, right? Eric Kennard is an American, was a former Olympian, right? Just an Olympics back or so. I remember hearing his name. But who some of these other guys you mentioned, were they all Americans, or were some people from other countries down there too?
Yeah, those were the main names, right? Those three were the main names. There's some other people that are a little lower. I think there was another meet with Randall Cunningham in it. But yeah, Django Lovett, this is his first year at the Olympics for Canada, and then Wu is for South Korea. I think it's his first year at the Olympics as well.
That's so awesome. It's got to be fun to rub elbows with these guys. Did you talk training with them? I know you were if you're talking to someone from Canada, at least you can understand them. If you don't speak Korean, then you're in trouble, right, with Wu. But did you watch what they were doing? Did you pick up any tips? How did that work?
Yeah, I mean, not so much, to be honest. I mean, just the friendly hello and all that, but no, we didn't really talk technicals or technique or anything like that. And honestly, at that time, and they're still, they both have better PRs than me, but I didn't consider myself equal on their skill level.
Right.
And then so it's kind of just it's just a cool period to see. I think I ended up beating one or two of them on one of the meets, and it was just mind blowing almost to me, because I didn't consider myself there, and then all of a sudden, I get that experience.
All right, that's going to wrap up part one with Tyler Arroyo, our young man from Chico State, who jumped 7.5 3/4 this year and made it all the way to the U.S. Olympic trials. and made it to the final at the U.S. Olympic trials. We'll be back with part 2 next week. Until then, stay with us next time you get a chance on Raise the Bar.